Hey everyone, it's Captain,
And the Gigi.
and today we're going to go over some instructions on how to make eye splices in Sta Set Line.
He's going to.
He's going to. I'm going to.
I'm going to watch and run the camera.
So what we did when we bought our Lucia 40, which we're naming Labella V, we also bought a Parasailor, and one of the suggested requirements for the Parasailor is to have a sheet and a guy. So obviously you got 10 millimeter Sta Set Line. This is going to be the guy on one side of the Parasailor, and then we have a witchered snap shackle with a large bail on it. So this will actually connect to the foot of the Parasailor, and then it'll have a sheet and a guy connected to it. So instead of just tying these on and potentially having to check the knots all the time, what we're actually going to do is create a back splice eye into this line so that the snap shackle is permanently attached all the time. All right, we just cut the end off the rope because once again it had the melted on it, so we're going to get rid of that. Now the first thing, we're going to move my witchered shackle out. So we're going to take our fid and we're going to measure back one whole fid length. So end to there, end to there. We're just going to measure that one fid length right there. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to bring my shackle back into play here. We are actually going to measure how big of an eye that we want. So we're going to go, you can see right about there or so. That probably looks good. Go ahead and make that mark. Perfect. So now we got our two marks right there. Now what we're going to do, because once we pull the core out, we're going to have to thin this cover down. We're going to go ahead at this point and mark our cover for the thinning. So like I said, remember we got one fid length there. So what we're going to do first, we're going to mark 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're going to mark those two set of strands there. That's where we're going to end our thinning. So now every 5, we're going to mark down, and those will be the strands that we pull out when we actually thin the cover. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mark there. 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just marking these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just marking these threads for where we're going to thin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's right on the end, so we don't have to worry about that, but that'd be that one. That one. Good. So now that we have that marked, what we're going to do we're going to separate the cover right here, and we're going to pull that core out at this point. So we're going to go ahead and just thicken that up a little bit, and then take our marlin spike. We're actually going to open this rope up. It's probably a little hard to see right there, but we're just spreading open the cover right there. Sorry, I'm just trying to see what I'm doing here too. And you can see that's the actual core. And we're just going to start prying that out. There we go. I think we got enough going there that we can. that hole just a little bit bigger. I'm just trying to spread that out. There's our core. Just keep working that out. There we go. That's coming out now. So now we got our core. We got our core and our cover separated. I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. And then what you're not going to see real quick is I'm going to go down to the slip knot end, and I'm actually going to pull the cover back down so that I get it nice and taut over the rest of this, because I have to mark this core piece now. So you can see we're just pulling this. There we go. And that just milks that cover back down there. So, once again, we're going to mark this. Now we're going to mark this core where it comes out. I went ahead and marked that. That's our 1 mark right there. I'm going to pull that cover back even further now. We're not going to mess with that too much. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on the end of there real quick, just so that doesn't start to unravel too much. And actually here in just a little bit we'll be working to move this cover through the core, so we're going to have to tape it anyway. You can see, just put a little bit of tape around there, set that off to the side. Now let's go back to this. So we got our 1 mark. We're going to go back to our primary fid, and we're going to measure down to the 2 lines that are on the fid right here, and we're going to make a 2 mark. So just going to mark that all the way around so we know exactly where that's at. Good. Okay. Once again, we're going to stretch our rope out here, and we're going to mark another 1/3 mark, and then a whole fid mark, and this is going to be our mark 3. So there's 3. Good. We're just marking that all the way, so we're really sure about where things are at here. I've learned in practice that it can get very confusing if you don't know exactly which mark you're dealing with. Okay, so again, we got our core, we got our mark where it came out of the core or cover, our 2 mark and our 3 mark. Now what we're going to do is we're going to feed our big fid. We're going to actually take and put it into the core. There you go, just like that. We're just going to slide it all the way down, and we're going from the 2 mark to the 3 mark. Get it all the way down there. There we go. Now we're actually going to feed the core back through. And here's an important thing. I've messed this up more than once myself, practicing on the first one. You have to make sure at this point in time that you thread your shackle through the rope, through the shackle, so that it's in the eye, because otherwise you get done and you're like, I got a perfect eye, but I don't have any shackle on it. So again, we're going to just put this in the end of our fid here. Go ahead and work that through, pull that through that way. Just work that through there like that, and then go ahead and take that fid off. Now we're pushing this up, you can see. Now what we want to do is find that one mark. And there it is right there. Okay. And then, now that we have the one mark, we're going to go down. There was our 8 mark and then our 5s. And now what we're going to do is we're actually going to remove these and thin this back to here so that when it's buried in the core, it creates a taper. So go ahead and remove that tape at this point. So I'll get this turned over here just a little bit. So we're going to dig these out. So we got those 3. Those 3. So we're just going to trim them as we go. Okay. Go to the next ones. These 3. There's our mark. There we go. We got those 3. Go to our next one. We're just working our way back. These 3. Keep going. I know this seems a little tedious at this point, but it is crucial to thin this cover, because if you don't thin it, then when you go to bury it, it does not bury very good at all. So Gigi just walked back out to see what I'm doing.
Because you're going to teach me how to do this.
Trim that. So we're up to our last 5. I'm sorry, we're not. There's a next one, and then our last. That was our 8 from our 1 mark. So we got a couple more to go. See, that just unravels it as we pull it out. A couple more, then we'll have all this thinned. We'll be ready to slide the core, or I'm sorry, the cover back into the core. Check. There's my 1 mark, so I'm going to go back. This was the first set of 5 after 8 that we marked, so those get pulled. There we go. Looks like I got a little bit of another one that came out just a little bit. That's okay, we're thinning it, so it doesn't matter. There we go. So that's a nice, you can't feel it, but you can see it. There's a nice taper going on there now, going all the way back to our 1 mark. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go ahead and slide this down until we see that 1 mark, which is right there. I'm going to make sure those are together. And then I'm going to milk this core back down, and the tail of that cover disappears in there. Okay, you got to hold on to that union pretty tightly though, because you don't want to lose that piece in there. So now what I'm going to do is actually, hang on one second. I'm reaching my bag of tools here. I have some small fids that I use for some paracord stuff. And you're actually going to see what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert that fid right there at the union of the core and the cover where it's in there. And I'm doing that so that I don't lose or have that cover pull out of that core at this time. Okay. So now we're going to work this line back again. You can see it's a little thicker down here, but we're going to work that back because we're going to have to make a few more measurements. I'm going to move my shackle up here, move my core up here. Again, holding on to that union really tight. I'm going to work that. Work that back down like that. So what I need to do now is take my fit again. I'm going to take my 2 marks here, which is approximately a third. I'm going to mark that down here on the core and cover again, because now I'm going to have to run this cord back through the cover past where the core actually comes out, and then it will come out down here. So I'm going to make that mark right there, right now. There we go. This is where I said earlier, the smaller fid, even though this is a 3/8 or 9mm fid, comes in handy, because if I tried to run the bigger fid past the union where the core and cover are together all the way down here, it gets extremely tight and it's hard to do. So we're going to set that one to the side. And what we're going to do here is, first off, I'm going to tape up the end of my core so I can get it in my fid. I'm actually going to have to taper that when I do it, so I'll show you how we do that real quick. Just put a taper of some with the scissors on it. Just tape that up like that. And I can't get it since it's a wrong size for this fit. I can't get it in there, obviously. So I'm just going to cut it down a little bit there. Take some additional tape, and what I'll do is I'll put this end in the fid like that, and then I'll just tape it there. That'll hold it in place long enough for me to run it through like I need to. So, all right, so the important thing here is, obviously I'm protecting this union. I got my shackle on, and I got my first mark here and my second mark there. I'm going to run the fid through. You want to get the fid fairly close to that union, so right there, because you want the core and the cover to be Xing through there. So I'm going to go ahead and feed this through. You get down here to this point where the regular core is still at. You want to make sure when you're pushing the fid through that you don't catch any of the strands of this core. And you can check that by just pulling on the core, and if it doesn't move the fid, then you're doing okay. So we're going to come down here like that, straighten that out. So now we can see I'm burying that core back into the cover here. There, see? I'm going to go ahead and pull that through. There, now I got that union right there. Unfortunately, that shackle's sort of in the way a little bit right now, so I'm just going to move it to the other side here. And we're going to milk this back now, like that. Okay. Still protecting this to make sure this tail, that when I'm pulling these, they don't separate at all. So I'm going to leave that in there. Snip that back. Get it nice and tight. Good, like that. So now what I need to do is I'm actually going to cut a piece of this off. So I'm going to mark it where it exits, right there. Then what I actually have to do, this is always interesting, is I have to mark this piece of core that's actually in there. So I'll just take my Sharpie, stick it down in there, and there's usually enough ink that it penetrates the fibers and I can see. So I'm going to pull that back through again. And there, that's what I'm looking for right there. Okay. So again, I got to thin this now. So I'm just going to go ahead and, actually I'm not going to cut it just yet. We're actually going to mark, I got to mark 4 back up here to thin this out. So what I'm doing here now is I got to mark 4 back from where I'm going to actually cut it. So those two, a little bit hard to see, those two, and those two. So those 4. So I'm going to cut here, then cut here, cut these 2 strands, these 2 strands, these 2 strands, and that's once again just to thin out that core. So go ahead and cut there. Perfect. I'm going to set that off to the side. And now go back in and get these. So we'll cut those 2. Those 2. Once again, this doesn't have to be 100% perfect. What you're doing here is just trying to make it so that when this buries, there's enough area. I'm just taking the volume of the core down. In fact, we could probably just do it this way. I've done this a couple times before. Pull that out. And these last 2. There we go. Let's get that little piece. There. Little fly. So now you can see we've thinned that down. So now we're going to milk this back in there. See that? There we go. Just a little bit more. There. Okay. Now it gets a little interesting because we have that milked back in there. Make sure that's we're in there the way it's supposed to be. Still have my joint right here. I don't want to lose sight of that. Now we have to milk this back in here. The way we're going to do that is I have this, Captain has this hooked up on a dowel down there so I can pull pressure on it. And what I'm going to do is actually come down here and I'm going to milk this core here. And at the same time, you're going to see me go off camera a little bit. I'm going to be over here and on this side, over here. And I'm going to work this core back in and we're going to sink this back through here. So first off, let me go ahead and we're going to take this out at this point. We're going to work this because we want this to be, it should be no bigger than the actual rope itself at this point. So there we go. I'm going to put some gloves on because when you're milking this, it sort of gets hot on the hands. So okay, like I said, this is sort of going to go a little off camera here while I'm working this. I'm just going to come down here, milk. There we go. Milking that core. You can see there, what you can't see is it's See, it's actually sucking up the length here. This is being pulled in here. So I can probably actually make a couple of good tugs on this again, and I'll create a new knot. Once I got this side pulled in here real good. I'll make sure that core and cover down on this end is where it needs to be. There. Made another knot down here. I'm just going to hook this up now down here. So when I pull, maybe you get a better idea here. So I'm pulling this down, and this is going back in. You're bearing that. So you can see at this point, we just about got it. I got to get a little bit more of this down in there. So I'm going to keep pulling on it. Almost. Just a little bit more. We got to put a little bit of muscle in this. Just working that core down. There we go. Here we go. So as you can see at this point, I got my eye. It's nice and tight. I got a good solid splice in there. And what I'll do, I'm not going to do it right now, but what I'll do eventually is I'll put a lock stitch in this and put a whipping on this to make sure that, you know, under any tension on the boat or anything like that, this doesn't come undone at all. So hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching.